Hello everyone, so this is going to be a bit of an interesting video because this happened this week, which is obviously not great, but it did give me the opportunity to do a video that I had wanted to try for a while now, and that was trying to create artwork using only my fingers. I'm sure most of us have ended up finger painting at some point in our lives, but it's probably been quite a while for most of us. And it's always just seemed like a really interesting challenge to me to try and do this, and obviously with my current injury, which is a very long story, it seemed like a good possibility to try and do this sort of challenge now, seeing as my hand being messed up was pretty much completely stopping me from being able to do artwork. I mean, it's my thumb joint, and just gripping onto anything material like art supplies or otherwise was not happening. But the rest of my fingers were in full functioning form. So I ended up deciding to try and paint a galaxy. I figured that would kind of be a good in-between thing, something that I'm very familiar with painting, although I'm not normally painting it using acrylic paint, which is what I decided to use for this video. It's just, you know, the usual cheap craft liquidy acrylic paint that I use for most costumes and stuff. Really nothing fancy. Honestly, I think looking back at this, just me not being used to using acrylic paints was probably more of the challenge than using only my fingers. The paint actually blends really well when you use your fingers. I did end up deciding to use a glove just because I didn't want it all over the bandage that was on my hand, but you know, using your fingers would be fine too. I'm not sure how much of the glove was assisting in the blending process, or whether it was just being able to have a lot of control with the pressure and stuff of the paint, and just like a large flat surface of your fingertip being able to kind of blend everything together well. But yeah, the paint did actually blend fantastically. For this galaxy, because I was using acrylic paints as opposed to my usual watercolor or colored pencil, I wasn't too worried about building up the color gradually, so I did start with a gradient sort of background just to get the colors down. Also because I wasn't exactly sure how well these materials and the paint was going to like performing on this paper and blending and all of that kind of stuff. So I definitely started kind of with a base color layer to get the colors and tones in that I wanted, and then I decided to go over top and create this lighter area, which, as you can see, does end up being quite messy for a while. The one thing I think I could say about just using your fingers is you obviously don't have that much control. It is the size of your fingertips, and really, I probably could have done this on a slightly larger paper or canvas, but it ended up working out fine in the end for me. I just had to use more layers to get there, just to kind of block out the larger blobby sections that I couldn't really control because that was, you know, the size of my fingertip. Also, because I'm not really used to using these paints in a traditional 2D art sort of form, I really had no idea how much it would end up drying down and darkening. So, as you probably saw a few seconds ago, it did change color fairly drastically and ended up looking a lot more blended eventually, and that was pretty much just the paint drying. So that could be another kind of challenge if you're not used to using the paints normally. You might not know how much they like sinking in and blending in once they're dried and all of that kind of stuff. At this point, I was basically just trying to refine the cloud sort of areas and give it more definition in this sort of linear nebula section in the center here. Just going back and forth, adding in darker clouds and lighter areas to give it lots of dimension. Now, I did cheat a little bit for the star portion. Normally, you could do stars perfectly fine by just coating your fingertips and kind of flicking it onto the page. You would get the same effect as with the toothbrush, but seeing as my thumb was completely out of commission, the motion of flicking was just not going to happen, so I did ultimately decide to pull out the toothbrush and use it just with some white acrylic paint mixed in with a bit of blue to kind of tone down the stars a bit. Now I'm just removing the tape around the edges of my sketchbook, and this is my finished finger-painted galaxy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.